Everybody, welcome back with the Plapper. Platypus is the name, and welcome to another Persona 5 the Phantom X video. Today, I want to talk about Wonder, or ya boy Perplatty. I want to kind of tell you how you should build a support Wonder. So you could go with, Wonder has a couple different directions they can go in your account. You can have them try to be the main DPS, but realistically, a lot of people have and Joker and Ryuji. And even a lot of the lower rarity units can just do more damage than Wonder can. Not saying there aren't exceptions to be made at higher levels, but I think in general, most people are going to get most of the success out of their account if they have Wonder have a slightly more supporty Swiss Army knife role and leave the super dedicated damage dealers to the characters that can't do anything else. So that's what I want to talk about. Very first thing here, this is going to be a level 40 plus kind of thing. It kind of doesn't really matter what you do before level 40, you know, up to level 39, you can kind of get through most fights just doing whatever. Once you get level 40, I still think you can kind of get through doing whatever, but I do think it is pretty important that you get the personas that the basically rank 4 that are very good. Once you hit level 40, you actually could start getting these rank 4 personas, and there are some really, really good ones in there for a support build, so that's really when it comes online. Also, you want to be, I believe it's at least 50% through the second palace, because once you get 50% through the second palace, that is when you're going to unlock the all-in weapon. So you can get basically dupes for this by completing the palace. You know, you get, for getting 100% completion, I think you get 1 or 2 dupes. You'll get some in the Velvet Room as well, but to get the initial copy, you have to get 50% completion in the second palace. So most of you are already going to have this. This is obviously this is a great weapon. It's a DPS weapon, but I'm telling you, all in, I think this weapon is way better. Increases healing and shield by, right now mine's ranked up a little bit. I guess we can look at Forge 0, but baseline, it's 20%. Aura, when you're in the party, increase your party's defense 15%, and then after using a skill on an ally, restore 10% of the main target's HP. That means if you do a big AoE heal, but one person's closer to dead, you also get to heal them an additional 10% of their max HP. That's their own max HP, so that's very, very strong, because even if you don't have the most HP, it'll still heal them a very good amount. So, and then when you get up to Forge 6, which again, this is a free-to-play weapon, you are going to be able to get your heal and shield up 40%, which is huge, and 30% defense, and an additional 20% of their max HP. This is a phenomenal healer's weapon. This is probably what you want, and just by being around, you're helping survivability with 30% defense. So this is going to be the weapon you want to get in the second palace. All in, no doubt. Now, as far as the stats go, I would, first I'm going to reset these. As always, you should just probably rank these up as high as you can. You could probably, if you're going full support, get away with not unlocking these here. The attack, the one more, the melee. But I think you just should in general. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to max out the HP as much as I can. And I actually, even though I don't really care about the attack that much, you have to level up the attack to get to the defense. So I'm doing this here. Now, I'm pretty much going to ignore most of this. Besides for filler. So I care about HP percent, I care about defense percent, and then the other ones I really care about, ailment accuracy, I'm personally not that big of. HP recovery sounds obvious, but it's not obvious to me that this is your healing. This implies how much you get healed, which means, or, you know, which is good, but I actually, because this is self-shielding, so this is probably self-healing, right? But this is the one, I actually care about ailment resist a lot, because for me, this is the character, if he's my support, he's mostly my healer, I want to make sure his ailment resist is as high as possible. So that's where I'm going to prioritize it here, but I am going to pick up HP recovery and ailment accuracy before I come back here and pick up the attack, because I don't personally care about these too much. You can make a case that crit is good, because if you can crit with a physical attack, you get a chance to knock things down. So you might want to knock a couple off of this, maybe a couple off of this, and then go for just straight the crit rate. So this is something probably a little more likely for me to do. 8% extra crit rate just means if you use your gun, you might get a crit every now and then, so that's probably slightly better, but I'll leave that up to you. So this is kind of roughly you're going to want to go. And of course, as you level up, you'll get more points. And if you're a lower level than this, just get as close as you can. Now, really where the build comes in, right? It's not like other characters where you really need to worry about cards and min-maxing cards. Your equipment, besides the weapon, is basically your personas. So it's all about the right personas. So when we're gonna come here, and actually I'm gonna just go straight here to equip. So the first persona I wanna call out is her right here. I think she is, for the support, you've hit level 40, there is no replacement. I think there will be better personas in the future, as we level up higher, but I'm telling you right now, once you hit rank 4, I think she is the best. There is another character that can increase defense. I think this is better. Increase your max HP by 14.1%. After healing, increase target's max HP by 12%. So this will increase everyone's max HP by 12%, which is very good. There is another, I think it's Principality or whatever, will have a similar thing where they have increased defense. So when you heal, it increases everyone's defense. You're already giving everyone a AoE defense from just having your weapon in the first place. So I don't feel like that stacks favorably. Plus, this character has a built-in multi-heal. So you have more flexibility in your slots for coverage if you need to break shields, where you don't need to bring media. The other character, you have to bring media to get an AoE heal. So this is weaker than media, but it should be strong enough, and it has the upside of being able to cure an elemental ailment. But I think she is pretty much the best. She is the go-to, as she has been for me, absolutely the best healer I have at this stage of the game. Now, the second slot is where I am going to bring a buffing unit. You could also go with a debuffer instead, if that's kind of more your angle. I find that the characters that debuff and stuff like already tend to do it a bit better than the buffing character. And I just kind of prefer having a buff style, because I don't always know if specific debuffs are going to work against specific enemies, and I know buffs will always work on my squad. So a perfect second slot is going to be something like Succubus here. Yes, Succubus is a low level, however, she has a passive here. Whenever an ally uses a skill, increase their critical rate 11.7%, and she's got Rebellion to increase someone's crit rate. This is good even in the later game because it's very powerful. It's just a good effect. Another option here, I think, would be our boy Jiko Kukin. I don't know how to say his name, but he has increased defense, but mostly after using a skill on an ally, increase main target's attack by 13.5%. If they're dying, then it's better. This is actually pretty, I think, irrelevant because if they're dying, you're probably going to try to heal them. But let's say when you target an ally, you increase their max attack. He also has a AoE party attack increase. Now, this isn't necessarily like as good as Haruna or like other characters that could just like buff attack by a whole bunch, but this is a pretty respectable amount, especially on your healer, right? So you have a dedicated healer who also can then buff the entire team. Now, as for the third slot, this is something that I would dedicate to basically a flex spot, in the sense that I want to have coverage of elements so I can break shields in every fight. Sometimes, my buffs are all up on my characters, they're fully healed, and I just want to be able to help break shields or maybe deal some damage in an interesting way, which we'll talk about right here. So I kind of consider it a flex spot. Now, for me, what I've been doing a lot of right now is if I'm having a support character and they're not trying to attack every turn, I want attacks that could deal damage that not necessarily based on my stats and could deal damage over multiple turns. That way I don't need to deal damage every single turn to still get damage in. What do I mean by that? Perfect example here is our lady here, the shirtless Lamia. She has the Bonfire Festival, right? Basically, what I care about here is that this inflicts burn. This is actually a pretty powerful hit, and it's worth using for most things, but she also has burning. And so burning does 5% of an enemy's HP every turn for 2 turns. So it does 10% of their life. This is very good for a support to have because, one, it does turn on synergies with other characters, but even if it doesn't, this is just a way to deal a good amount of damage while also not needing to attack every single turn. You're still going to be able to heal while getting these procs on there. And then again, I would also, I would take off other skills here. I would take off Life Grain, add a Sayo, right? So now I have light damage, psychic damage, and fire damage. So I have 3 different types of damage. Just make sure that I have a lot of coverage here for shield breaking while also having an attack that can deal damage that doesn't necessarily care about the modifier, but is still pretty good. Another perfect example for me of a character that I think is perfect in the flex slot is actually White Rider. So he kind of just looks like a full-in damage dealing unit, high attack and stuff like that. And he kind of is, even with his thief tactics, he just hits something really, really hard and then he increases the damage they take. But he has this attack here, Wicked Brand. Deal curse damage to all foes equal to 66% of attack. That's fine, but it inflicts 1 to 2 curse stacks. Now, 1 to 2 curse stacks is not as good as burn, but this is AoE and it hits everybody. So if you're going up against a bunch of characters, and maybe you get to use this a couple turns in a row, if you get, like, burn is always 5%, curse you can get many stacks on. Plus, if you don't have Joker, this is a great way to get AoE shield break for curse. And then also, like, throw lightning, throw frost, just the ability to break shields on your support is also pretty good. Also, these attacks specifically have a chance to shock, 28% chance to shock. Shock is a powerful ailment. You like that. But freeze is a powerful ailment. It's actually really good for supports to have freeze in general because it lowers the enemy's attack. And he has increased ailment accuracy. So this is another perfect example, I think, of a character you'd want to use in that third slot. You've got the ability to deal damage over multiple turns with one attack. You've got the ability to break 3 different types of shields your other characters aren't able to break. And you've got even the ability to kind of debuff enemies with the freeze and the shock. So perfect third slot. So this might be an example of kind of how I have my wonder set up, right? If I'm going with a full support role. Now this guy doesn't have much coverage, but between this character, you know, my main healer, and this bottom character, I have a pretty good amount of coverage. I feel like I have all my bases covered here. Every turn I'm doing something useful. I'm healing, I'm buffing, I'm dealing reasonable amount of damage because it's percent based, even if my stats aren't that high. Just by being around, they're all getting a much higher defense. When I actually target my allies, they are going to heal. Even if I'm buffing them with the attack buff, they're still going to get the heal, which is really awesome. And my stats are like pretty reasonably high as well, with a focus on obviously the defensive stuff and keeping myself from being stunned or whatever. And yeah, that's kind of what I would say if you wanted to build a support wonder, the kind of direction you should go. If you're interested in hearing about a DPS wonder, let me know. I can also work on that. But yeah, for now, that's all for this one. Much love for platypuses per platypus. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!